Effectively, what this philosophy statement is, it's a non-formulaic guiding mission statement. Effectively, we want this document to show how an organization's values are lived out through compensation. There's typical components in a compensation philosophy document. All of these components should point back to the values of the organization. So just to go down the list, the analysis of market data. How are we going to take market data and utilize that in our compensation philosophy? Are we looking at market data? Are we making decisions without that? That would be the first thing that I would suggest putting in a compensation philosophy. Importance of internal equity. You know, again, that we're coming back to this same question here. Definitely want to have a statement in there about internal equity and explaining how an organization will go through implementing that. The role of geographic locations in compensation decisions. I recognize this is also a very hot topic right now, given the remote workforce environments that we have all sometimes been forced into in the last 2 years. So how is an organization going to pay based on where someone lives and works? Pay factors. What does an organization use to set pay? These can be various different things. You know, it can go just specifically on job function and responsibility. It could be on individuals' experience, education, skill set, you know, various different options there as well. How pay increases are handled. Are you going to increase pay annually? Are you going to increase pay semi-annually? Quarterly, monthly, perhaps. Don't recommend that. However, how often is that going to happen? And what is it going to be based on? And then similarly with promotions, when someone, you know, gets a new title, a new responsibility, might go up a level, so to speak, how is that handled? So I want to talk a little bit about external factors. I'm sure everyone is feeling the brunt of some of these external market factors that we all have right now. And I'm going to throw some statistics at you. So I apologize in advance if this is fairly boring. But I thought that these were some interesting statistics that might put in perspective what it is we're talking about and why this is such a hot topic right now. So you may have seen this, 2021 was heralded as the year of the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle. Lots of people moved around, lots of people resigned. Because of that, there was definitely an impact to organizations and losing talent. 44% of organizations believe that they're losing talent due to insufficient pay increases, meaning there were lots of organizations that either did a pay freeze during 2020, might have done pay cuts during 2020, and it's difficult now to keep up. So what happened is you have organizations that might have reduced pay in 2020, and now in 2021, everybody's leaving. Organizations didn't have time to adjust. So these are definitely, I'm sure that you're all feeling a lot of this. Because of that, 92% of organizations are planning on providing salary increases in 2022. Now, this is all industries, so keep that in mind. This is not specifically to the nonprofit world, so I pulled some of that data as well. Nonprofits are challenged to keep up with budget limitations in general. So first, you have to use efficient use of resources in order to maintain budgetary responsibility for a mission-driven organization. And you also have to fill this reasonable compensation philosophy around, we are going to pay reasonably for our employees. So because of that, only 32% of nonprofits are expecting to give over a 3% increase this year. Now, you hear a lot of things in the media around this of people are giving 6% increases, 7% increases, very large salary increases, and then potentially adding into other variable pay, contributing more to various different other benefits or perks. And the nonprofit world is going to have to compete with that, especially because there is not a large amount of nonprofits that are going to be giving those high increases. So something to keep in mind in terms of these external factors. We talked about external factors, but what are the internal factors that we want to look at when we are developing a compensation philosophy? So obviously, I'm just keep saying this over and over, organizational values should be the basis for this. Really making sure that you are looking at those values and seeing when you can apply those to compensation. It just creates a wonderful picture for employees to feel like they are being treated fairly and consistently across the board. Just something to think about a compensation philosophy is that they can change over time as an organization grows. Strategic initiatives change. What we're doing day to day changes. Things, we might be expanding into other locations. Maybe we find, a great example is 2020 when everybody went remote. That changed a lot because all of a sudden employees are thinking, well, if I'm remote, I can probably live anywhere. So that changes how we look at compensation, or could. Maybe it doesn't, but these are things to consider. A good question to ask is, where do you want to be and how will compensation change when you get there? There's lots of strategic initiatives that you could take. If you look at expanding into another state, you start to look at perhaps adding a different functionality, switching how employees are doing their jobs, maybe adjusting and adding in another function. These all are things organizationally that will affect your compensation philosophy and how compensation is viewed in your organization. Just a reminder is that taking baby steps is okay. You do not have to jump to 7% increases year one. You do not have to necessarily even go to exactly market-based pay year one. The things that you want to add over time, it's okay to do that. And it's okay to tell your employees that. In fact, I would venture to say that that actually helps you gain trust with your staff. Financial feasibility is a real factor here in making sure that you can support your organization and your decisions. As you make a compensation philosophy, definitely recommend following it. And with that financial feasibility of saying these things that we really would like to do right now but can't, again, you want to make sure that your employees are trusting what you're saying. And then you also want to consider some implementation of additional processes over time. For example, if you would like to move to a performance-based compensation program where those that are the top performers get paid on the higher end of the pay scale, then you're going to want to make sure that you have performance metrics established. You need a process in order to determine what that performance metric is going to be, how it is determined, and then how it is used in order to determine compensation as well. So all of these things are internal factors. It does take some thought. It does take some discussions with leaders, and sometimes just asking employees of all levels where they see compensation as an organization and how they feel about it. You can gain a lot of insight in doing that. I will say just one other thing. We have done many of these compensation surveys for nonprofit organizations and have participated in focus groups with employees of all levels as well. And really just asking those questions of, how do you view this? How are you looking at compensation? Do you feel we should have a regional pay model and pay differently? Do you feel that increases should be across the board, or should they be selective? What are the things that are important to employees can give you a lot of insights.